continue to eat and drink. The thought was that some folks might want to share a story or two about John. And I know there are people here from at least 4 communities that he was a part of. And so I'm from this church, the Kenmore community that he was a part of. And that Father Jen talked nicely in her homily upstairs. I guess I just wanted to share a couple of quick thoughts. I don't know if there's anybody from Redeemer who would like to speak. John struck me as being kind of a mystery person here. My first memory of him was he showed up at an adult education session, which we have between our early service and our later service on Sunday morning. So, and I hadn't seen him before. He must have come to a service sometime before that because he knew that there was adult education going on. But, so it's a room in another building over there with probably 25 people sitting around the table. And in walks John, who I hadn't seen, and I don't think other people had seen. Right there, that kind of got my attention, because that's my idea of way out of my comfort zone to walk into a group like that. And of course, he walked into the front of the room and sat down like he had been coming for years. And the assignment that we were studying the Eucharistic prayer, which was included in the service that we just did. But the assignment was to take portions of that. This was from our previous priest, and translate them into other words that maybe had some meaning from your perspective or like that. So that, well, if you look at that stuff, it's pretty hard. It's really a kind of a challenging assignment to take that material and translate it in some meaningful way, because you've heard it for years and years and years in the form that it's in there. So a week later, I think there were probably 3 people in the group that came back having actually done the homework. And of course, one of them was John. And he read his, I don't recall it completely, but it did have a distinct kind of environmental flavor to the version that he wrote. One of the other things I remember about John was was in conjunction with the summer daycare program at Iglesia de la Resurrección in Mount Vernon, which is a program that some of us here have been involved with, and there's several members from that church here today, both adults and children, young people. So it's some of us were involved at that time teaching. It's a bridge camp for kids, so they would stay sharp in school skills, among other things. That was the main goal during the summer. Go back in the fall, kind of not having to go through the lapse in understanding and getting a good start back into the school year. And so the second year of that program, I was trying to recruit for it, and so I made an announcement during the service upstairs. And sure enough, John is one of the people who wants to do that, to come up and work as a teacher. And I don't know. I was telling Emilio a minute ago. I was hesitant to respond enthusiastically because John did strike me as having kind of some peculiarities, and I think a lot of it had to do with his hearing issues that kind of made it seem like it was hard to communicate with him. And I felt protective immediately about the school, the day camp, would this be a problem with the day camp, and also for John. These are very wonderful, nice kids up there, but even they can kind of be aggravating at times in that kind of situation. So I was worried for John too, but he insisted, and I didn't put up much resistance. But I did decide that maybe the thing to do would be for him to work in the class that I was teaching in, so we could work together a little bit and maybe go into another class, I think. But I tell you, boy, was I wrong. That first few days that he was there, he did a lot of one-on-one literacy work with kids. And by the 3rd or 4th day, other teachers were trying to latch on to him. Robin, who was coordinating this, one coordinator of the school, was, I think, moving him around to other classes. And he thrived during that experience. And sure surprised me and made me recall that the world's much much bigger than what you sometimes think it is. So anyway, those are memories the particular things that I've appreciated about John. I don't know if anybody else wanted to talk about some of the things here at Redeemer.
I have one John story I'll just share where I learned some other dimensions, perhaps, his character. I worked with him since he first came here and was interested in the solar project, so that's kind of how I got to know him. And over the time he was here, my wife and I usually sat and talked with him for a little while after the service, very frequently. And this one Sunday, I think last summer, we spoke with him. We just said, "Hi, John, how are you doing?" And in this kind of slow, deliberate way of speaking that he had, he said, "Oh, I'm really, really kind of tired this morning because I was out at a concert last night. I didn't get home with all the traffic and everything until 2 in the morning." So I said, "Well, where were you?" I knew that he had been in history with classical music and involved. And he said, "Well, I was at a concert and one of the bands the headliner was okay, but there was another one that I really liked quite a lot. They were called 9 Inch Nails." So, I said, rhythmically, they were very interesting. So I that just opened my eyes a little bit. Okay, we told our daughter, and she thought that was great. So she was really anxious to meet him, and unfortunately, she won't get to in the near future. So.
Well, I have a great story about John, and we actually have evidence of it because we video him. Last summer when he came back to Resurrection to help in the summertime, the summer before, his first summer there, he carpooled, but last summer he couldn't. So he made arrangements that he would spend a whole month in a campground. And after the first week of it being there, when it really, remember in late July, early August last summer, it was really raining and lots of lightning, and he showed up looking pretty haggard. And so we eventually found him a place to live in Mount Vernon from people from the church up there. And he slept in the church, even we gave him a cot. He was just so flexible. But he became our 7th and 8th grade teacher. And he poured out his entire spirit and soul to those kids. Not the easiest grade level for some people to work with, and others it's their gift. And he really had a gift with those kids. He would meet with me at the end of the day with notes about each child and how they were doing. And he just thought maybe this one child was just a lack of confidence, and how could we help him? And he just went way beyond, way beyond. And here's the last thing he did. It was our last week. We had a field trip to the water slides up at Birch Bay. And the teachers are all like, "Do I have to go down the slides with the kids?" I said, "You're with your group. You gotta be with them." So John shows up in his swimsuit and ready to go. And he went down the killer slide. It's got some kind of a name. And we have it on. We have it on tape, on video. We actually sent it to some of you, so you might want to show it at your next coffee hour. But you could tell it was John, because when the kids came down, they made a little splash at the end, but when John came down, it was like an orca whale. And he hits out the water and everybody's cheering. I mean, had such a good spirit with the kids. So we really will miss him this next summer. He was a wonderful soul and represented your church very, very well. Thanks for sharing with us.
I'm from Friends of North Creek Forest, and there are 4 of us here today to work with John from January 1913 until he stopped coming last summer. And the first time I met John, he didn't tell me his name. I just turned, and he was there. He said, "What do you want me to do?" And I didn't know what he was capable of, and And I said, can you maybe pitchfork some mulch into some wheelbarrows so the kids can bring them over? And I figured that'd be something he could set his own pace. And he didn't wait for the kids to bring them over. He went off typically by himself, and he'd be carrying wheelbarrow load after wheelbarrow load after wheelbarrow load. He showed up in January 2013, and I think he only missed 2 events. And sometimes we had them every week. We work with the University of Washington, and they take out invasive species and put in about 1,000 trees, plants, and shrubs a year. One event last summer, we had the YMCA, how many? 36 YMCA teenagers from 13 to 17 years old every week. And John will come to those and help us. And there were 3 different occasions I remember. There were probably more, because I think the kids caught on and started hanging out with him. But there was this one kid in particular. He was older, and he was kind of embarrassed to be tired out. He said, I said, are you tired? What's wrong? He said, I'm really tired. And I said, well, go over there and work with John. That's John. Go help him. And John started working with him. They slowed the pace down, and they got real steady. And at lunchtime, that kid couldn't get away from, John couldn't get away from that kid. They bonded. And John was, I didn't know he was a teacher. He was really good with those kids. The other thing that happened was there was one change partway through this when John started showing up with his big white dog. I didn't know you could get a white long-haired dog that clean, but that dog was really well taken care of. And John went from having a cheeseburger during our barbecue to asking for a cheeseburger and then coming back and asking for a plain hamburger. And I didn't catch it the first time, but after that I watched him go over and feed the dog a hamburger. He loved that dog. And I feel kind of bad that we didn't catch that he was missing very quickly. And we sent him a couple of notes and he didn't respond. And it wasn't until just recently that one of his neighbors contacted us and told us that he was no longer with us. And I made an inquiry about the service, and Mark, who I know from other conservation work, got a hold of us. And so on the 31st, between 10 and 2, we'll have an event, and we're going to plant a tree in John's honor. We've got a group called Whale Scouts coming out, and we expect maybe 50, 60 people there. So if you're in the neighborhood, look us up and come on out and have a hamburger. Join us.
I also worked with Jim from North Forest as a volunteer for a little while, and we do restoration in the forest, in the North Forest in Buffalo. And it's kind of hard to get people to come out and actually work with us on these rainy days, Saturday mornings, when everybody wants to sleep in the weekend. So there were quite a lot of Saturday mornings away. We get up early and we set up the tent and chairs and tables and snacks and coffee and tools and the place and the things and the plants that you need to get in the ground and the plants that you need to move. And nobody would come except for Dawn. Every Saturday, Dawn would walk up, and he meant the world to us, what he did. And the first year that he came out, he wasn't very good at it. To be honest, he'd grab a pair of hedge clippers and head off in some direction, and it didn't matter if we wanted him to cut it down or not. He'd cut that thing down. We learned a lot that first year about what could be replanted. The second year, he wasn't very good either. We had to assign a couple of kids to keep an eye on him. Oh, John's cutting down the tree again. Show him what's a tree and what's blackberry and what's good and what needs to get cut down. By the third year, he was pretty good. He would like to go and chase down those wayward souls who were cutting down good trees. And we're gonna really miss it out there in the court. Because he was a lot of help, and his dedication was very admirable. And I wanted to invite him to our wedding. Hopefully he'll be with us there in spirit. And thank you all for caring for him like we did.
Anybody else would like to speak?
Yeah, I just should say, most of us here from Redeemer know this, but John was also very generous with his wealth, his resources, as well as his time. That Father Jed certainly mentioned that, well, I think in the homily upstairs, John said a couple times that I remember, you can't take it with you. Several times I remember him saying that, and I don't know where that he was in his illness at that point, but that was pretty clear. He decided we had a great group here for solar panels, and he decided to make that happen. So we'll be proceeding on that fairly soon with an array of solar panels on the roof. What else he bought? He being hard hearing himself, he invested in a little amplifier system and headphones. A what? Yes, and he contributed heavily to the new organ console. That beautiful organ upstairs doesn't work well without a good console, and the old one was pretty much falling apart, so we made that happen. We had a leaky toilet in the men's room for a few years, and he finally had enough of that. I guess he had actually worked at Home Depot at some time, but he just went over one day and said, let's take care of this, and walked in with a new toilet. And that's it. But he was somebody like that. But he sure had. It did seem to me that he was consciously, decided to give everything he had to give in terms of the way he wanted to live. So, anybody else would like to say the word? Well, please feel free to continue to talk and to enjoy the refreshments and the food. And thanks everybody for coming. Nice to be here.
Because the dog was mentioned, I have one with him. He is well and being taken care of by a foster who's looking into adopting as soon as he can. So.